Am I still very loud? I am always very loud.
No, that's okay.
Did you know that?
What have you done? That's
That's better. Okay. So I think what my one is in terms of the loudness is that I use the NVIDIA RTX machine learning noise cancelling thingy. And if you say quiet, sometimes it tries to obviously adapt to what the base level is. So if this is now a good speaking level, this should be fine. But just let me know if I get too loud and obnoxious.
In general,
okay. I feel somehow I'm the odd one out here. I need to grow a beard, and then I can be a brother in arms.
You're bald. That's fine, but I think you're missing. Your hair has not migrated downstairs.
I'm missing the headphones and the beard.
Definitely. Let me quickly see. I need to. Sorry, I just want to confirm that we are live.
What's better than CloudFormation?
No. Why is Robomaker better than CloudFormation?
Wow.
Oh, that's that anything with robots, surely by definition is better than anything, right?
Exactly.
And so I actually do have. I've got some waffle bots actually, which I haven't actually had a chance to play with it yet at the moment. But I've got aspirations of trying to find some time over summer to try and build one of these waffle bots and integrate it into Robomaker and start using the SLAM to start mapping the house. Whether it'll work or not, I don't know. But maybe a future episode, on here as how that project evolves.
How does Robomaker work? That's my question. I never had a chance to play with Robomaker.
So Robomaker
is the base of the service.
Yeah. So Robomaker really is based on the robotic operating system ROS. Okay. And ROS itself is it's called robotic operating system, but in fact actually it's middleware. So it sits on Unix, mainly Ubuntu for ROS 1, ROS 2, which has been launched. You can actually run that on Windows and Mac as well. But effectively you install it on an OS and it provides a message bus. And you have these nodes, which effectively are created, and actually a lot of the robotics manufacturers have created these things. And you create ROS applications that interact with these nodes via message bus, and you've got commands that allow you to introspect and send messages, that kind of stuff. But there's a couple of tools that are part of ROS. So Gazebo, which is like a kind of like a Unity type thing, it's like a modeling language where you can actually see and design environments for your robots to simulate in. But the big idea really, about Robomaker is that it's super hard to develop robots because they're physical entities and test them. And wouldn't it just be easier if we could digitize those and put them in effectively a computer simulation? So the idea is just like, how we can sort of apply, cloud native principles to software development. Robomaker allows you to do that with robotics. So it's really allows you to do things like testing, development, apply, for example, CI/CD, right?
Yeah.
You can now do CI/CD with robotics, which previously was really hard to do because it would take maybe many months to get to a situation where you're actually putting your code on a robot, then testing it. You can do that in hours now.
Okay, and it simulates the robot, or the elements of a robot in Robomaker as well.
So the elements of the robot really are from the point of view of if you've got a robot, you need software that runs on that robot, right?
Okay.
And so Robomaker takes care of all that piece. It's not a physical robot itself.
No, of course. Okay.
Okay.
I know Robomaker was used with Deep Racer. I know when we were doing when you do training. Yeah, when you do training.
Yeah. So actually, so it's the part of Deep Racer, which I'm also very keen on as well, as many people out there might have seen some of my Robomaker sessions. What we use it for is when you create your reinforcement reward function, you deploy it on a robotic model of the Deep Racer car that gets put in a simulator, and then it tests out that reward function. So it's using the simulation part of robotics. So like a normal robot, when you write your code, you need to test it in an environment. I have a weekly open source newsletter, and quite often I share stuff that people are doing in robotics, and it's often in the space of simulation. So they'll create, for example, in these times of increased social distancing, they're creating things like hospitals, models of hospitals, which you can then create your prototype model. of a robot, and then deploy into these models of hospitals, and you can test and simulate how it would function. We've got models that do things like a house. So if you've got, for example, a robotic vacuum cleaner like iRobot have, you can test out how your robotic vacuum cleaner would work in different house layouts. Does it work better on certain floor types? Are there certain obstacles that it would fall over against? Again, this is all in simulation, right? So, but the digital artifacts that you create are very accurate representations of the real world.
Okay, I would love to see that in action, because I actually discovered a channel called I think it was Vacuum Wars, which is literally just about benchmarking and reviewing robots. The guy even has different blocked off squares with different carpet lengths that he puts sand on. So he measures I think 100 grams of sand, puts it on the carpet, then measures how much sand the robot or the vacuum cleaner actually picks up. Then he's got one where it's actually a glass floor, so you can view from the bottom the action of the vacuum cleaner. Right. And he's got all these different tests about different depths of grooves and things. So it'll be very interesting to see how the simulators matches up to those real world tests.
Yeah, and so that what you're talking about there, okay, is what we talk about when we talk about in Deep Racer is it's the sim to real sort of leap, right? And in when you're doing Deep Racer, okay, you're effectively training this digital car to go around a racetrack. Okay, the output of that is a model. Okay, now it used to be on a USB stick, so I know that you guys both have done the Deep Racer workshops. I know UK has done a lot at the Cape Town Summit, I think it was a while back. And back in those days, you'd stick the model on. There you have it. Look at that. I've actually got one here behind me as well, but I didn't get mine out of this, so I didn't realize we were going to be talking about it.
I don't have one.
But you'd put it on a USB stick, but now you don't have to do that. You can just do it through the console, right?
That's nice.
What you're doing there, okay, is you're now deploying on a real car. Now, the real car goes on a typical vinyl track, right? Yeah. But we've had people who have put it on carpet, right? We've had people who've painted it on concrete floors or wooden floors, right? Now, the friction of the rubber tires on the different surfaces is exactly like what you said there, right? Is it shag pile carpet that your robot's got to go through, or a nice little wooden floor, right? So the simulation part of it is all about trying to provide as a realistic representation of the real world. So that's why Gazebo's got has got a physics engine, right? So it things like friction, gravity, different materials, that kind of stuff.
Cool, awesome. Just quickly, for those people that have joined us in the last few minutes, welcome. This is the AWS Africa office hours. We are hosting this every week at this time slot for the foreseeable future. And we will be pulling in multiple people from my team, and also maybe some essays and maybe even specialist essays in future. So the idea is, if you've got any questions, please use the chat to send them to us, and then we'll discuss those. And until we get those, we will be discussing various different AWS tech things that we have, and maybe some questions that we've seen in the last week. So please send us some questions. Otherwise, we will continue to talk randomly about things.
It's okay. As this is the Africa office hours, maybe you've talked about this already. So apologies, but obviously with the virtual summit or virtual Africa launch last week, which was awesome. It was really good. Have you had much in the way of questions or feedback from that event?
Well, the feedback's been mostly good. I mean, we had a lot of people saying it was the sessions they enjoyed because it was a bit more practical and hands-on than some of the summit sessions, which were more let me expose you to what the services are, because the two events had slightly different focuses. So that's been good feedback so far. I'm actually trying to think now what specific.
What was the hot topic? What were the ones that people like most?
They like Darko the most. So the hot topic was infrastructure as code, actually, which is
I did see that. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, loaded question. Nice. So that was a very, very interesting thing. Then also, actually, I can pull those up if you give me a second, because I know that containers were also popular. Give me a second. I just need to find it on my other laptop. Region. There we go.
I want to do something about infrastructure as code. I want to recommend the book. If you're starting with infrastructure as code, this thing by Bradley Campbell. No matter if you're going to do Terraform or CloudFormation, really great way to start if you've never done it. It's available everywhere, but it basically goes through the super basics on how to write your first CloudFormation template, how to start with Terraform. Super great if you want to do screenshot.
That's actually good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link to it. Maybe if you hold up the book, I can Google it on Amazon quickly, or
let me share it. Actually, I'll
okay,
out,
cool.
So don't worry.
Okay, he'll share us a link. So just quickly getting back to Ricardo's question. So interestingly, getting started with infrastructure as code was almost twice as popular as the next popular topic. And the next one, there's a clustering of 1, 2, 3 ones. And the 3 ones are production-ready full-stack development for cloud beginners, getting started with containers. Yay, that was my session. And migrating your database to Amazon Aurora. So those were the ones that clearly stood out in terms of the interest from the local crowd. Now, obviously, depending on what you're doing, there might be reasons specifically for that. But in general, a lot of people are finally getting into infrastructure as code. I think it's starting to become more mainstream. Yeah. And I think part of that effect is that the more people use it, the more people go, this is actually not hard and it's easy and it's actually faster than clicking in the console. Because I've been using it now for I don't know how many years, and when I try and spin something up in the console, I always have to go practice beforehand because I can't remember where all the buttons are, and it takes me 3-4 times longer than just quickly writing out whatever tool I use.
I see a lot of that actually in the open source world, right? So in my weekly newsletter every week, CDK, for example, Terraform as another as well, are quite often the most common either blog posts about how to get started or how to do stuff, how to build or how to create an infrastructure based using CDK. But also a lot of projects are coming out. Either there might be additional resources to help you build infrastructure that we currently don't provide, or just customers showing how they built their infrastructure as code. It's definitely a very one of the popular themes I've seen since I started my newsletter at the beginning of the year. It's every week there's always at least 2 or 3 posts around CDK or CDK and Terraform, or obviously with the big announcement last week of how you can use CDK to build Terraform.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the interesting one because that one, the CDK to build Terraform was interesting because it sounds like, because it refers to CDK, that it's going to be building out resources for the AWS provider. Yeah. And the fun part is that it actually builds out any Terraform resource. So you can use the CDK to build out Terraform for something else, like for Kubernetes or for, let's say, your networking gear or whatever else you want to manage. So that was super.
You can do Azure with CDK. So
and I've got to give a shout out to the CDK patterns, right? So I'm not sure if people saw that. There was a tweet yesterday. There was a CDK patterns blog post that came out, I think, on the AWS blog, but also on Dev2 as well, which is a walkthrough by Matt Cotter of 20 of the patterns that have emerged, and it's amazing. It's a really good resource to kickstart your infrastructure as code journey.
Yeah, so I think if you're just starting with infrastructure as code and you already have a knowledge in one of those languages, being JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, C#, Java, or F#, do CDK. Save yourself the time of trying to wrangle JSON and YAML. Do CDK. It will help you. Now, if you don't know any of these languages, CloudFormation or Terraform is really a great way to start. But if you really want to start CDK, do TypeScript. I know right. I'm not a fan of TypeScript, but all the best documentation is in TypeScript. So you will get the most examples in TypeScript.
Familiar with TypeScript? What's TypeScript, Darko?
TypeScript is the weird uncle of JavaScript. So it's basically you compile TypeScript to JavaScript. So it's a statically typed JavaScript. So right. and it came from Microsoft. I like the fact that it's statically typed. That's my jam. But I've never used pure JavaScript in this sense. I've used JavaScript in making a website, but the very the old school just for the visual. But right now anything I do on CDK is in TypeScript just because I got used to it now. But I do my Lambda scripts in Python. Why don't I do CDK in Python? Because not enough examples in Python. So, and that's something maybe we should fix.
I was just about to say you can take Python. I'll try and take C#. Who's up for F#?
What is F#?
Don't look at me. I'm not a coder.
Has anybody? Have you seen F# before?
It's a Microsoft's functional language. So it looks like it looks like a functional language in the sense that you're going to look at it and go like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Exactly. Never had a chance to play with functional languages. I have people who swear by functional language, like they see Haskell and like, oh, Haskell is the best thing in the world. But is Haskell yeah, Haskell is a functional
Haskell is pure functional,
yeah,
because you get the pure functional ones, and then there's slightly more mixes. Like if you look at Scala, it is functional, but you can also still do OO with it.
Okay.
So it's not forcing you to be purely functional.
One of the weirdest languages I've seen, and I'm talking about common use languages, well, relatively common use languages. I'm not talking about brainfuck and all those things. So I'm like, have you tried or have you seen Erlang? Yeah. Erlang is weird. Erlang has an active, like while it's executing, it can be modified. So because it keeps writing things to its own like execution environment, and during the execution, it can actually be changed. So it's Chef was written in Erlang, half Ruby, half Erlang.
Why is that important, Darko? Just from the point of view of someone like me who's interested in technology but maybe doesn't know the nuances like that. Why is that significant?
Well, I wouldn't know how to say that. For me, it's weird. Like I'm not a developer by trade. I use code to kind of help myself survive, but I'm not a developer by trade. But one of the things I do see is like things like Erlang and Haskell are a bit different than something you're generally used to. So why is it important for Erlang to have an execution environment which you can modify? Do you know?
Oh, yes, I do, actually. So Erlang actually is built to also cluster with itself. So multiple processes that you're running with Erlang then end up clustering together and then sharing state and things that way. Makes sense. That is why, and it's also made to be up permanently, so that then when you do hard code swaps, you can actually just put it into one of the nodes and then it trickles out to all the other ones in terms of hard uploading them. Yeah. That sounds good. Erlang was used quite a lot in the early telecoms industry. It's still fairly popular there. There's a very, very dry, humorous video, I think, from Ericsson from the 70s where the two gentlemen are actually talking about how they're live coding Erlang. You can see literally how the individual numbers as you press it on the phone comes through. But it's super dry. Ricardo, you would love it.
Yeah, I would. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Haskell is an interesting one, Darko, because I when I was chatting to some customers at kind of the end of last year, a lot of people were saying they were doing a lot of their sort of data scientists and machine learning in that language. So I'm not sure if that's because it's a good language to do that in. It was certainly the first time I'd ever heard of it, you see. So
the only time I've ever met with Haskell was with people who religiously believe Haskell is the new Jesus, or when I've done Xmonad. Xmonad is a window manager for Linux that's completely written in Haskell, and the configuration, when you do configuration of your environment, you do it in Haskell as well. So that's the only time I've done it. But is it better? I don't know. Is it superior to some things? I guess it has its purposes. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. But yeah, there's also this like some people have their preferences, and I understand. Like there's a massive Lua community there. I don't know why Lua is so great. I never tried Lua. The only time I used Lua was in Minecraft. There's a mod in Minecraft called ComputerCraft where you can code computers in Minecraft using Lua. So never. I don't like the Lua. I don't like the Lua commenting system where you have I think it's the double dashes like that. That's a comment. I'm not a fan of those things. So that's how I make my decisions on programming languages.
Cool. We have a question there from I can't pronounce this. Kamitu Munguti. About whether Elasticsearch is written in Erlang, and I actually don't know. Let's quickly search for it.
It is.
It's Java, isn't it?
Yes, parts of it.
So one of the parts of Chef is Chef Automate has Logstash, MQTT, and Elasticsearch, and I believe Erlang is written. At least the Chef one is written in Erlang. Yeah. So I think
doesn't appear that way. I agree with Ricardo that I think Elasticsearch is actually Java.
So Elasticsearch came from Lucene. Lucene was back in the day, back in the early days of open source. I used to run Java teams for professional service company, and Lucene was one of the early open source projects that projects loved, right? Because it gave them a really easy ability to search the data they had in their applications. But then as applications got bigger, scaling that out horizontally, not vertically. Vertically was fine. Horizontal scaling of Lucene became really hard to do. And there's a lot of interesting workarounds and creative solutions, right? But they all were a bit flaky. So Elasticsearch came out and it built on top of that. So I think I'm pretty sure it's Java based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually had one of our audience people, Ruan Beck, confirm that it's written in Java, which is based on Lucene, which is what you just said, yeah.
Okay. Erlang is used in WhatsApp. WhatsApp is written in Erlang. There we go. So if you use WhatsApp.
So I'm using Erlang every day.
Exactly. Apparently.
Yeah.
I'm gonna create a T-shirt. I use Erlang every day.
And so do you, probably.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. I'm going to scroll through some of the questions that I've seen in the last while. There's a local Slack group that has an AWS channel where there are a couple of questions. And quickly, I see we've got 1 or 2 new people. Thanks for joining us and welcome. So let me quickly have a look here. What was a fun one over here?
Maybe you can share the Africa Slack channel here, because apparently people don't know about that. Maybe you can get the.
Okay. Did you not know about that one? Okay, let me. It's called the ZA Tech Slack group, and you can sign up here on the URL that I'm about to paste. Okay, there we go. It is that one. So Ruan, come say hi there. I hang out in the AWS channel and the DevOps channel primarily, and a couple others. So if you weren't aware of this, please come join us. Anyone else obviously is also welcome there. This is it's an interesting channel where it's not just for developers, it's for technology. So predominantly it's developers. So there are channels for things like DevOps, programming, algorithms, databases, specific languages. There's also a nice thing where a lot of the local companies actually have their own channels. So we've got a local recruitment company called OfferZen. They do a lot of fun swag, like fun shirts and things. And they have a channel in there, so you can chat with them, and they regularly run like, hey, what's going to be our next image or graphic that we're going to use. And from there, my 2 favorites that I had is a little dog that's running. And you can see he's running towards a branch, and then it says get fetch. And then there's a dragon with gold that's get stash. So yeah, proper software dev humor.
So whilst you're finding that question, for some questions, Cobus, can I ask you both the question? So I've been looking a lot recently in the last few weeks around, the use of PHP, right, by developers. Everyone talks about Python, Erlang, Haskell, but we don't hear so much about PHP. But yet, when I speak to various people, it still seems it's really, really popular, right? Cobus, in your region, okay, and Darko in yours, are you seeing that? Do you still see a lot of developers building stuff on PHP? What are they building? What kind of stuff are they doing? I'm kind of
so that one from my side, that one is a fairly easy one to answer because WordPress is the PHP version of it is still extremely popular, and there are a lot of the, especially the agencies that specialize in building very nice looking front ends. Or just sites for different companies that have put a lot of effort into building a lot of plugins and customization for WordPress. So for a lot of people, that's the quickest way to actually get things out in terms of a website based on the experience of what they've got. So, and also I think if you look at the stats, WordPress has got an insane percentage of real estate worldwide. It's very high. So just based on that, it's like it's that typical thing like where people say that PHP is a crap language, Java is slow, and no one uses C and C++ anymore. I mean, all of those statements are false.
Exactly. Yeah. So PHP has a bad rap about its security and all that stuff. But again, I understand that going from previous versions of PHP. But PHP is immensely popular, especially in the WordPress community. And you wouldn't imagine how big is the WordPress community. I've actually delivered a talk on a WordPress conference, purely WordPress conference, just folks who code and develop WordPress. And it's its own bubble by itself, to be fair. Like I went there to present AWS, and a lot of people were like, what is AWS? I think one of the things I would love to see people work more on AWS is to bring more modern solutions to WordPress on AWS. We do have, you can do WordPress on light sail, and it's relatively easy to host a LAMP stack on AWS. But there is a solution to do WordPress serverlessly. Serverlessly, is that word? To do WordPress serverless. It's possible, but it's very complex. It takes a lot of effort to do that. But you can do that, right? The thing is, I've seen a lot of people use PHP on non-web related things. So people use system administrators, if they exist still. They use PHP for like local scripting tasks, because PHP does.
I've seen that a lot.
Scripting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually had a question. I'm still trying to find some time to help the person who asked me about that, which is they have 5 different WordPress sites that they want to add into some kind of CI/CD system, and they want one, and then the pricing changed over there, so it's no longer free. So they have to pay like a fee per worker node per month or something, which is fairly high for just a freelance a pet project. So I'm actually going to be building out that probably in the stream next week. Where I do the code build job for that, because I mean, if you think about it, with AWS code build, you pay per second, and I think it's the first 1,000 minutes are free a month.
Yeah.
So we actually worked out that he can probably run all 5 of them free, and even if he can't, he can at worst just spin up 5 different accounts and set one up per account should he want to. But I mean, even if you're doing one account, you're talking cents in terms of build time.
Exactly, and it doesn't take, especially. I mean, are you talking about deploying a WordPress code, or?
This is just literally just for now. It's the build step, so it's the building it, so running some npm commands, and then ultimately once it's done, to do a FTP to another location. The next step will be having a conversation saying, "Hey, where are you currently hosting it? How are you hosting it? Isn't it maybe better to look at Lightsail or spin up something, put it in a container?"
Right, so it's just the themes or the plugins you're talking about, not the actual WordPress site itself. Then
no, it's the whole site that they want to build. Okay. Because they're modifying it, so they want to be able to make code modifications, then push and sync it up to an FTP site at the moment.
Okay. So it's kind of augmenting the initial part. Then you just FTP things somewhere else.
Yeah.
Don't use FTP.
Well, yeah, no. I'm also going to hopefully convince them to use something else other than that, because
you say that, but when I spent the last 2 weeks speaking to lots and lots of developers, PHP developers of different experiences, right? FileZilla, right, and FTP is still without doubt the way to do it, right? And actually, I would say that they and actually, to be fair, 2 things have come out, right? FileZilla, tool of choice, but cPanel is what they all use, right? So I'm thinking, you talked about PHP and serverless. I'm thinking, what about cPanel serverlessly? Could we create one of those, right? Because that would be massive, I think.
Yeah. So this is the thing where we need to stop, self-reflect, and get off our high horse, and like, not everything is serverless. Okay, calm down. There's a lot of people doing a lot of good things still in a very, dare I say it, traditional way. So I know people who unfortunately use Telnet, but there are requirements sometimes for you to do that, and especially for like WordPress. And let's be honest, a lot of people who are WordPress developers are not DevOps engineers or system administrators. They know how to bang out great PHP, but they still do it with FTP because that's how they used to do it. And augmenting all of that for them would be great. So maybe Cobus, if you make this solution, try to add
definitely
the well-architected best practices to those things, and you can kind of
also
share it with the folks.
No, definitely. I'm going to try to make it as one-click solution as possible. The reason is, so the main thing I think is it's all about the workflow, because a lot of people view, if you're doing something in an old way that isn't, like you now said, modern, is that you just you don't care. Where it's more a case of, you might even know about the other ways of doing it, but it's all about efficiency and speed. Because I've seen some of these people when they navigate, for example, cPanel, it's like, I can't even see what they're clicking on, and then just like, okay, we're done, we set up. So then you ask that question, well, if I can do this in 10 seconds with cPanel by clicking, because I've done it for years and I know it so well, is there really that much value for me to automate this or do it a different way?
And that's the thing. You always, whenever you do things, and this comes to yours and my discussion from last time about app config, is doing something extra that much worth it for you, because how do you measure your value, or what are you trying to measure here? Your time spent or the coolness of your setup, right? So make sure that your setup is highly available, working, reliable, etc., etc. But also don't spend too much time on it if you don't need to, right? So if it is a simple WordPress site and you do secure things, that's just great. That works. There we go.
Cool. Yes. So for those not familiar with this XKCD cartoon, this is awesome. Let me actually just have to tab and make it slightly bigger. Give me a second here. Is this working? Yep. Yes. Now it's nice and big. Cool. Now I can see it as well. So basically, what this cartoon represents is the x-axis at the top is how often you do something, and then on the y-axis is how much time do you shave off it by automating it. And then what it does in the box in the middle, it actually tells you how much time would you have saved over 5 years. If you, for example, let's say it takes you 5 seconds. Let's take an example. The one that is you do daily, and it takes you 1 minute to do. So that you would, over 5 years, remember, this is not 5 years. You would save 1 day if you automated it, which means if you spend more than 1 day automating it, you lose time over 5 years. And the interesting part here is that if you think about it, 5 years, how many pieces of software you've written and things that you've automated that were still up and running after 5 years.
But it's cool.
No, I know.
And we do a lot of things for the sake of being engineers. And I fully get this. This is like the rational Cobus speaking.
I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to be controversial, and I'm going to refute that chart. Okay. Because I think that might be quantitative, okay, in the reality of actually how automating a specific task would save you time. However, right, the process of someone going to create the automation itself is accrued learning, right? Accrued experience, right? Which they then take when they need to automate something the next time to improve it or do it better. So I think that chart misses the point that if you're not spending time doing those automation tasks, you don't have the experience, you don't have the thinking, you're not in the mindset, you don't know the tools. So that when you then need to automate stuff, you then basically are in a worse position. So I think that, yes, it's a fun chart, but I think that it hides the experience aspect of ongoing learning by doing.
So I fully agree with that, but I do want to throw in here that I've got a lot of experience automating stuff, and I sometimes catch myself having to say, should I really be automating this? And I know I want to do it because it's a nice technical challenge, but I know that it's not really going to save time.
I think that's right. I think that you should have a framework, right, for when you automate something or when you don't automate it. But I just don't think it should necessarily be driven by that chart around how much time you would save. I think there are other factors, right? Like, for example, the way I think of it is that, will this be something I could potentially reuse in the future? Is this a foundational thing that I'm going to use going forward? That kind of thing. So those are the factors by which I will tend to, either spend time on something versus, just Googling, downloading an existing tool that's already done the job, right?
And also 2 more things. So you learn stuff, you kind of figure things out as you go along. It feels great. The other thing is, you have fun. Like I have fun automating things. Like I sometimes code for the hell of it, right? So I really do enjoy doing those things. So having a complex task and spending my time on that kind of makes me feel satisfied. It's a small game or a thing I do. Plus I get to learn. And to be honest, most of the things I've learned were from those kind of things. I just experiment, try to do something that's potentially not so great, but it kind of takes a chunk of my day, and it's for the greater good, I guess, in the end.
I mean, I fully understand. I mean, initially when I got really into Chef a few years back, and this is also pre-kids, so obviously you have a lot of more free time then, I would spend Friday nights and evenings chefing my local home server, which had like 3 or 4 things running. It took me like, I don't know how many hours or days to do, but it was fun because you then click that button and then whoosh.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. In fact, actually, it would be a regular conversation on the Monday morning with people I used to work with about what they'd automated. And what was interesting, actually, it wasn't necessarily they were all actually tackling specific things that mattered to them. So one of the guys I used to work with, so James, if you're listening, this is about you. Shout out to you. He's a very keen photographer, and he had this really amazing workflow around how he used Git. to manage his photos, and then how he synced those up through different machines at his home office, at his girlfriend's office, that kind of thing. And every week he'd talk about a new tool he'd used or a new automation thing that made things cheaper or faster, So I think it is sometimes something that's in your in your head to do.
I mean, I'm definitely looking at something like that now.
Sorry. I'm liking how you've got all these XKCD cartoons to hand. It's like you got one.
XKCD speaks the truth. So literally, you can make any presentation and include at least one XKCD comic for anything we talk about. And one of my rules I have is only one XKCD comic per slide deck, because I don't want to go overboard, but you can literally make it any slide deck you talk.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite one. It's about learning and how you shouldn't be mean to someone to make them feel stupid if they ask something and they don't know something. Because I've met actually people that at an older age just never have experienced Mentos and Coke, and then Diet Coke, and then we show them this. It's just like, because there's the joy of that childlike joy of discovering something this awesome is just like.
Yep, that's the thing.
So
not everybody knows everything, so it's fun to learn and experiment, even though if it takes away your time, or you spend more time in doing something, automation or coding something or building something. If you're having fun with it and you're learning something, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, because I like to talk about when we talk about modern application development and when you discuss products versus projects, right? When you have a product that's constantly following your customers' requirements, you're trying to build. When you're building something, you're not building it for a milestone, you're building it for a customer. So one of the things you have to have in a product is to completely avoid overutilization. So you cannot 100% fill somebody's time or be super efficient with your time. Otherwise, you don't have that flexibility to react to things. So one of the great ways to use that free time in when not overutilizing is to do automation and learn things and have fun. So there we go.
No, definitely. I mean, it's if you think about, there's quite a lot of research in that area where the 40-hour work week came back from Henry Ford's research, where he found that if you let people work more than that, and this is for factory line, production line workers, that they became less efficient. So it wasn't a, hey, we're being nice by saying you can get a weekend. It's a literally, you need a weekend, otherwise you become less efficient. And they've done a lot of the research now with, especially with creative and deep thinking type work like software development, where you should actually be working less than, I think, 35 hours a week. Otherwise, you're not as efficient anymore because your brain gets tired and you need time to think about things.
And just think about how, if you have a 100% utilized computer, how good does it work? It's horrible, right? even on that perspective.
Well, it depends if you're mining some cryptocurrency.
Okay, it's achieving its outcome, but how flexible it is, right?
No, I'm joking. Yeah. Cool. I'm quickly going to scroll over here again. An interesting question around OpenVPN and how to get that up and running on, or any VPN to get into your AWS account. And one of the things I want to do there is, Darko, I'm going to connect you with the people so that they can go watch your video on using. You're going to have to say the Systems Manager, Session Manager.
Yes,
did I get it right?
Systems Manager, Session Manager, Manager, Systems Manager.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's awesome. The Session Manager is really cool.
I have a video somewhere here. I'm going to link it.
Yeah. Link it in the chat because... Yeah, because basically, just for those not aware, what you do is you use the AWS CLI. You can execute a command if you've got the SSM agent running on the different hosts, and it'll create a tunnel to that machine for you, similar to SSH in the sense that you get a bash or whatever terminal you've got configured. You can even do it with Windows, and then you can interact with it directly without having to expose ports or to the internet for that instance.
Yes. So the link I've shared right now is basically. It's a thing about hybrid setup. So I'm actually doing stuff on my Raspberry Pi, but it applies for both anything on AWS. So Systems Manager can manage things on AWS. Now, what's great about Session Manager, which is part of Systems Manager, is that it kind of emulates SSH connections and remote PowerShell connections, but it's actually not SSH and it's not remote PowerShell because it goes over port 443, so it uses HTTPS instead of having to open ports. And you can do things such as connect to systems through the browser. You can also use your command line to do that as well. So if you're a fan of the CLI, you can do the same. You can, on top of that, do port forwarding. So if you love RDP, you can actually RDP to a Windows instance through the power of Session Manager as well. So that's kind of already built in.
That's interesting. So you can actually do tunneling through Session Manager.
Yes, absolutely. If you use the CLI, you can do tunneling, and if you use VPC endpoints, you can do without even giving that instance any internet access. So you can completely remove internet access as long as that instance can talk to Systems Manager while setting up a VPC private gateway endpoint something. You can do that, and your instance will be completely isolated from the rest of the world. It will only talk really cool. Yeah. So
I'd like to see that. I'd like to
throw away your bash.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, Darko, I just want to mention firstly, hi, Dennis. Dennis is one of our new teammates, and he always joins our streams. We actually had him on here as well. But that comment on VPC endpoints, we should actually do a session on that just to go over them, because there's actually quite a lot of power that comes with that. And also, for example, cost saving by enabling the S3 endpoint, because then you don't speak to S3 over the internet, leaving your VPC going outside and back in again type scenario. So I will put that on our list for things to discuss.
So Coach, you mentioned about Open VPN, right? So that's slightly different to Session Manager, though, right? So Session Manager is like how you SSH into an EC2 instance or RDP over something, right? Whereas OpenVPN might be that you might have an application, a client you've got that wants to access resources, or
possibly
they're related, but maybe slightly different use cases.
But with tunnel,
they didn't specify
you
how
can set this up as well.
Because that's the thing with tunneling. That's what I want to get at. Darko, is that exactly that? Because normally you want to access something on your network or in your VPC that's not exposed publicly, and this is one way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, having a VPN connection, there is AWS VPN. It's not even Open VPN. There's a VPN service part feature.
It's based on VPN, isn't it? I think it's based on VPN, and I think also if you look in Marketplace, there's also a whole bunch of Open VPN.
You can do OpenSwan, and
that's right. Yeah,
and that was the traditional solution. So when I used to work in support, so 2016, we customers would come to us saying, "Hey, I want a VPN to AWS," and before even AWS VPN existed, the solution was, go to the Marketplace, launch OpenSwan, and configure OpenSwan as a VPN server entry point to your thing. Now the problem with that is that you have to work hard on securing your OpenSwan server, all the things you have to do. Now with general AWS VPN, it's much less of a hassle because it's a managed thing. So again, where do you want to spend your time?
Am I right, Darko, in thinking that if you use one of those solutions that you can get access not just to a single EC2 instance, right?
Correct.
You can open it up to your subnets that you want for your security groups.
Yeah, you connect to a VPC and then basically have local access to it. I mean, depending on what you're trying to do, right? If you want to use VPN for administration, operations, troubleshooting, whatnot, then maybe Session Manager is better. But if you want to use VPN for accessing internal services or just in general connecting your office or remote workspace to AWS, depending on the size of the office and the workspace, maybe Direct Connect is better if you want to get more performance. And Direct Connect is basically somebody brings a cable of AWS into your data center and plugs it in.
And of course, there's the bit before you get to Direct Connect. Okay, you've got accelerated VPN as well, right? Yes. So that could be a step before that, because that allows you to still piggyback over the global AWS network, right, through your nearest POP.
Correct. It's a tad bit better than just doing normal VPN.
Yeah. Sure. So it's like, you've got options, right? If the first thing doesn't work, then you can go to the next one, and then finally go to the to the big guns of the Direct Connect.
Correct.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always like a lot of options to do things. Am I very loud or very soft? I can see Darko frowning because I'm fiddling with my settings.
You're good. I'm just thinking of some other question I got from somebody a while ago regarding VPN and accessing a database through VPN, and then somebody else said, okay, so this is the thing. If you connect to your database using VPN or give somebody access to your database using VPN, don't do that. Be smart about it. One of our serverless heroes actually told in that video, hey, use an API. create an API layer in front of it, and just do it that way, right? So that's also another way you can abstract things while having more security and control over things, and not having to count on VPNs and exposing things to the internet.
I mean, it's a good point, though, isn't it? Because we hope at some point OpenVPN and SSHing into machines will be a thing of the past, right?
Yeah, hopefully, right? I mean, the way we are moving, okay, to an extent, right? So I think things of the past are never things of the past.
Yeah.
People running mainframes. So, but I think people will move more towards this controlled access, in a sense that you will not limit people on a network level. You will limit people on a API level or something on that perspective, something more secure, let's call it.
Yeah. I mean, I know for like a few years back, a lot of people making, especially in the DevOps space, noise around, but you should never be SSHing into a box anymore, because if you're SSHing, you're doing it wrong. You're not DevOpsing right. And there are always scenarios for why it's useful.
I mean, that's correct, but it's not the case. That's wishful thinking. I would love to have a system where I would never have to use any tool besides Git and Vim. Literally, I could run everything on my system like that.
Oh,
that would be ideal.
We've got that, Kubernetes.
Oh yeah, right. But sometimes you really have to, especially if in a traditional system, you have to SSH into things. You have to connect to your network. You have to look at things when they break. Otherwise, if you're just ignoring them, because there's also things. Hear me out. When people talk about immutable infrastructure, if something goes bad, just tear it down and bring it up a new one. That's fine. That will work to fix your problem. But how is that working to evolve your operations? Is that actively helping you to improve what you're doing, or is it just like, burn the data center down and bring a new one because maybe it works now? So,
well, there's a balance there, because it's a case of if something weird happens on instance, nuke it, bring up a new one, and if it doesn't happen again, fine. If it does happen more frequently or at a weird interval, then it's worth digging into, because I mean, then obviously you didn't get rid of the problem. It wasn't just like something somewhere going wrong.
Correct.
Yeah, but I'd counter that by saying that potentially that if as long as you can get everything you need off a machine, so there's a lot of systems now integrate things like Logstash or FileBeat. They get all the key things you need from a machine, centralize it, and provide developers with a nice GUI that allows them to search for the stuff they're only allowed to access, right? So that's important. You don't give them access to everything, just let them see the stuff about their applications. Then surely there's still no need to SSH into a box.
Absolutely. But sometimes you maybe have forgotten something to pick something off an instance.
Drift configuration.
Troubleshooting applications.
No. There's the one use case which everybody will have. At some point, you're going to have an issue with DNS, because it's always DNS, and you need to check that from the box. It is that simple. So we actually have a question here that's relating to this comment that you made, Darko, was that is it like build to fail? And what that means is, if you think about the cloud, I mean, a lot of people build systems and then they've got like a hot standby or something they want to be able to fail over, where they say, we know there will be failure, but hopefully it won't happen a long time because we spent a lot of money on expensive hardware and we've got SLAs in place to fix it. Where the mindset with cloud is that at any given time, the virtual machine or that you're building on might need to be moved somewhere else. Like the underlying hardware might fail. There might be something else that triggers that. Someone makes a mistake. So you need to build your systems to be able to bring that VM up again somewhere else and configure it. So the question here is actually, this is a very great one. It's a fun discussion where to configure the box, do you always provision it through user data? And the short answer is yes and no, and also it depends. Just to cover all the bases. So the reason here is that user data, for those not familiar, is a mechanism that you can add scripts to a virtual machine as it boots up in Amazon. So you can add literally like a bash script that does whatever commands you wanted to install, let's say Java, install something else, etc. What that means is that at boot time, that is executed. So where it's not a good idea to do is if you're installing, for example, packages, because then let's say you've got 2 copies of the box running and you're installing the package at boot time, because there are different times when you bring it up, it might install different versions of the package, and then you've got problems in terms of knowing what the behavior is going to be of that package. Also, it does slow down the bringing up of the machine. Where it is useful is for like runtime configuration. So let's say you've got your AMI configured with, let's say, monitoring software system like Datadog, a third-party system, and it needs an API key to spin up. Then you can put, for example, the API key in the user data. So when it spins up, that's just a config value it grabs, and then it goes off again and does things.
That's a super fair point. If you want to do configuration management, there are tools out there such as Puppet, Chef, Ansible, whatnot, if you want to do more complex things at scale. Because not every system is immutable, not every system can be just recycled willy-nilly. So sometimes you have to do actual configuration on top of that.
Yeah, and bear in mind that user data was one of the early, very, very early ways you did this, right? So it's still there, it's still supported, but other ways of doing it now that are probably better.
But it's important. For example, if you manage your things through Chef or Puppet, you need to bootstrap your system in some way. So this is a really great way to do bootstrapping and not burning AMIs. So there's another question in chat from somebody named IMO466, Greengrass Group. So my advice here, I mean, I'm not a very experienced person with Greengrass and IoT. If you have premium support, ask the folks. They will be able to troubleshoot you more if this is very important in a sense that you need to fix it right now. Speak to premium support. I used to work in premium support. I can say there's a lot of smart and capable people there that can help you out with this. And especially if you're paying for premium support, don't be shy to use it. So
yeah. And even if you don't have premium support, right, even the basic support, what I found in the past is you raise a question and they're normally really, really good at getting back to you, right?
So what happened? So here's the thing. Bit from the background, right? So basic support is answered by different people, and the thing is, they know a lot of folks from premium support. What they do is literally they reach out to us. Hey, I really want to help this customer. They cannot basically reach us, and the customers cannot reach us in premium support. So the basic support folks reach out to us via like internal chat, and hey, customer is asking me this. Can you give me an answer for this? And then you kind of do something, and there's limitations what you can do, of course, but they're technical limitations, not the will limitations. So, but you can also get some potential help from them as well.
There's another question here. I'm going to post the second part of it. The first part relates to what about doing something simple like amending an IP table using SSH, because it's super quick to do. And the second part is, should it be done through a tool like Pulumi, Terraform, or CDK? And this is depending what you're using, because Pulumi, Terraform, or CDK are infrastructure as code tools. They're not specifically for configuring the instance. Obviously, there are ways you can configure the instances. One way being using them to add user data to your instance you're spinning up. Another way is Terraform has got the concept of a null. It's a null provider or a remote provider where you can actually execute commands remotely. Now that's slightly better, but this is where you want to have some kind of configuration management tool in place. The reason is that updating IP tables by hand is dangerous because you get it wrong and you lock yourself out of the box. And also you can ask me how I know that. So I would never run those commands by hand. I would always have some kind of automation system. And this is where something Chef, Ansible, Puppet, Salt, those are the main ones at the moment. And depending on how you, so there are quite a lot of them. It depends on how you want to do them. Albeit, how do I do that? Well, how did I lock out production and how to get a network person to go physically reboot the production machine? It was not a fun day.
We've all been there.
Yeah. It was literally at that point, it's like I also want to say we did something interesting with VPNs on the boxes to get directly to individual ones. And it was not a pleasant day. Also, why I know it is because IP tables is actually mangled when you start running Kubernetes worker nodes. Worker nodes with the overlay networking. And that can get very funky and very interesting very quickly if people make a mistake. Here's
the thing about Chef and Puppet, or actually Chef per se. So Chef is a pull model. The Chef agent pulls configuration from the Chef server. So even if you lock yourself out, you eliminate your incoming connections to the system. As long as you change Chef configuration, when your Chef agent checks in, it will pull the new configuration and fix that. So if you need to do that thing.
So you mentioned about being locked out of your server, right? I'm interested from hearing from both of you. Other big fails you've had, right? I'll start just by owning up that I remember years and years ago when I was for people probably won't remember this. It's Novell Networks. It used to be the big networking infrastructure at the time, and I mirrored a bad disk onto a good disk, thereby removing all the data. I only did that once because I learned very quickly how to not do that again. But at least I was able to show the customer that the backup worked. That's all I can say. But
tested something out,
it's one of those things that you only ever do once, right? But it happens. So these things can happen to us, as we're working. I'm interested in what other things that you being locked out of servers or something more that you're willing to share.
I've got a couple. So the first one is day 2 of my very first job, and to put this in context, when I finished studying, I think I applied to 54 companies. I got 6 no responses because it's a typical thing where you've got 0 experience and you're trying to find a job in tech. 0 experience. So 6 of them said thank you, but no thank you. 2 of them gave me an interview, and I've only got an offer from 1 of them. So this is it's not like I had many choices. So day 1 was assembling my PC and installing the operating system and configuring everything. Day 2 was given a task saying, listen, we're seeing someone who's abusing a sign-up system. There's definitely some kind of pattern to their email that they're using and the usernames that they're using. Go write a query for us that'll block the accounts that you see that we can run in a schedule just to keep blocking them out until we put some kind of other mechanism in place. So off I go, write this lovely statement. Boom, it's this big. Even formatted nicely because I was told that you need to make your queries look pretty as well. And we run the select, and it brings back a certain set. We double check names and all that, and it works. They're happy with it. They tell me, okay, cool, well, go ahead and run it on production. So I'll go ahead, cool, turn in an update statement, and I run it, and it returns with 504,000 records updated. And we had 504,000 people in the system. And I had just gone, lock account equals 1. I'm like, oh, crap. So, and I'm looking at this, and this is where I learned that how these query execution things work is if you highlight a certain portion, like update table set locked equals 1 and nothing else, that's the only part it's going to execute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Luckily, I was on fire. That was interesting.
I disconnected everybody's mailbox for a couple of days. So I worked on an exchange system, and there was an issue with email, and so this issue happened on December 31st, and I was out drinking, so I was a bit under the pressure, let's call it that way, and I was on call, and they brought me in. Okay, hey, you have to fix this, and I completely screwed up. Like, it took me a couple of hours to try to do one thing that takes like 20 minutes because I was having trouble looking at my screen. So I broken something, and it took like a couple of days because we had to restore things from backup, from tape, because I decided to fix the Exchange mailbox stores while drunk. So don't do that. And if you're on call, stay on call, stay home. So,
that actually reminds me, that story, Darko, reminds me of a time where when I was on call for a very large English bank, it was Christmas time, and I got called in the early hours to fix something, and I'd gone to a fancy dress party. So I was still wearing my fancy dress outfit when I rocked up and went into the data center. It's probably the only time they've ever seen a fancy dress costume in the data center. I should have taken a picture, but I didn't.
Never had a chance to do that, but that would be cool. And you can continue having your fancy dress party in the data center. That's also cool. Bring some drinks.
I must say, the other fun story is not quite a fail. That it should have been a fail given what we were doing. Is that we built a system running on Linux using a SQL Server, specifically Microsoft SQL Server, because that instance was then running Windows. And this was for a company that had never run Linux before, and they had very strict requirements that you are not allowed to have production database access ever. Problem was that the database servers were connected to domain controllers, and we, during our updates, need to be able to run queries against them as part of it. So we had SSH access to the web service, but we didn't have any other access. And that's where we realized that nobody understood that with SSH you could do port forwarding. Then the second part of the fun part was, so we literally just forwarded the database port local, and you've got access to the database. But then you had this issue where the database password were expired. And the good part there was that SQL Server wasn't configured correctly. It had admin rights, and there's a thing called command shell. So you can actually execute shell commands from inside the DB. So we just said port forward, execute, reset password. Okay, cool. Now we can do what we want. So we had a script that actually ran that in the background every now and then.
Nice.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to be anti-fragile or resilient.
Nice. We've got another question, which is, have you guys heard of AMS, Amazon Managed Services? I I have not. Have any of you two heard of it?
I have heard of it. So Amazon Managed Services is something we do with a number of partners as well as ourselves, where we effectively provide the cloud center of excellence or the cloud engineering team on behalf of the customer. So, for example, if you're a company, you're trying to build up your cloud competency, but you're not quite there yet, then this provides you with kind of the people and expertise, best practices, as well as support to kind of get you started, to bootstrap you. So it's effectively where we do a lot more of the stuff. If you imagine the shared responsibility model from security, but from an operations perspective, where we actually do a bit more than just give you access to the services. We actually go in, help configure, build, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the point of Amazon Managed Services. I remember when that theme was being built up. It was a few years ago. So a lot of customers do use that.
It's an awesome service, actually. I've worked with some of the enterprise team and to talk about some of the customers and how they're using it, and it's incredible. Actually, it's a really good way if you're want to have a bit more extra hand holding, right? With people who really know how this stuff works. It's a really good good way to go.
Oh, that's an interesting follow-up question there for us, Ricardo, which is it easy to move infrastructure from AMS to an AWS account?
Oh, I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I guess maybe we'll have to find that answer out and sort of talk about it at the next your office hours.
Yeah, or we can pop it on Twitter somewhere. So at this point, just quickly point out to people, you can see our Twitter handles there at the bottom. What I'll do quickly is I'll paste them for us in the chat as well. I just need to hide it first, then I can edit it, and then I can grab it. Save, show, there we go. In case you're wondering, sorry for the silence. I can't do more than one thing at the moment.
I can sing if you want. It's fine.
Please don't.
I'm sure somewhere people would pay good money for that.
Or pay good money for it to stop. So
no. They'll pay good money, but not for the reason you think they're paying good money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We were also discussing some ways to make these sessions more interactive. We were discussing how can we more engage with you, our guys, our audience. Maybe singing is one of the things we can do at the end of the session. Maybe.
Yeah, I think what I'll do in future is we'll try and get maybe started off with a list of questions that we received that we published before that we know we can cover, and also I kind of want to make it like a proper a show, and maybe start off with what was released in last week that's of interest in terms of new services or specific things in, let's say, the Cape Town region for people, because that could be fun, and just quickly chat about that.
Yeah.
Because I see we are actually already at 7 minutes past. We still have a couple of people online. Do we have another couple of questions here? Because we can continue answering the questions if people have. This is a good one. This is a good one. We have to discuss this one.
Yes, it's mandatory actually. So
yeah,
I'm
not quite there.
Yeah, but we still don't have Jeff growing a beard, so maybe I'm not sure. Not yet.
Yeah. This just happened to be I think in our team the bald head ratio is quite high. I'm trying to think now, yeah. But yeah.
I think
I wonder what that means.
The beard ratio is relatively good. But I don't think the baldness is that prevalent. We have us three, and we have.
And also, just quickly clarify, it's not baldness; it's a life choice. Okay, it's a choice.
Yes, exactly, it's a choice. Is it though? I'm not sure. I don't think this is a choice. But okay. Actually, I had longer hair, mind you, not just normal hair. I had longer hair, like I had little things on the side, so it was.
Oh wow!
One day I'll share my photo from high school. So
we should do that as well, because you wouldn't recognize me. I had hair, no beard, and glasses.
I actually had hair. I actually had dreadlocks.
Wow.
So, Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
I can show you my picture from my passport. Maybe somehow. Yes, that's me. That's
Oh,
the
wow.
gentleman here with without the beard and with some
Sure.
hair.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a bit rough. I might actually, that's a very good source. I've got my old ones here as well. Oh yes. Oh yes, you will love this one. Okay. Let me see if I can get this zoomed in. So this is me when I was, I think, 22.
Wow.
No.
That's the hair. That's the hair.
That is someone different.
Yeah.
Someone completely different.
Yep.
That is crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's but I mean, I remember this passport. It was one of those really fun ones. It's still like the first one, so I got it before I was 16. So it literally has got an expiry date in, and then it goes see page 6, which has got a different expiry. Then below that, it's got see page 7 different expiry date. Then there's another one in there, so it's got 4 or 5 different expiry dates.
That's you, Ricardo.
That's me.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Wow. Amazing. So there's a question from IMO, and Dennis already answered it on chat, but you can integrate QuickSight with DynamoDB. So QuickSight is a lovely tool for dashboards and showing data. So that could be also a thing. It's not as simple. I don't think it's a push button solution. It requires a bit more effort, but
if you wanted to write your own dashboard as well, there are quite a few good open source projects that allow you to do that. So D3 is a good one, and Charts are JavaScript libraries that help you take data from a remote data source. So you could access your data from DynamoDB through JavaScript, and then do visualizations yourself in code. That's another option you've got as well.
And also, by the way, Ricardo is our open source specialist. So if you have any open source questions and ideas and queries, feel free to forward them to Ricardo.
Yeah, please.
He would be happy to hear them, I think. And you also, Ricardo, do some amazing blog posts. I think it's a weekly blog post thing for open source, right?
Yeah.
Is there a dashboard for EKS? That's a question. Is there a dashboard for EKS?
Yes, there's. You can see in terms of it's not quite the operational dashboard like you used to be able to see the pods and all of that running. But because remember, it's a managed service, so it's the concern with running of your backplane and making sure that is configured, and does have some views on that. I actually played around with it very lightly in a demo that I did but I think 3 months ago. Just realized it was April, I think, or May. But I actually haven't spent enough time with it. It's one of those like on my to-do list.
Yeah, I was chatting to one of the advocates actually in the containers team, Massimo, who because they're quite often there are some open source projects that do dashboards for containers, and this is one of the areas where there's a lot of interesting options you've got. So I think definitely search for open source solutions to that as well.
Cool. Let me just yeah. So let me just double check here. I think let's give it another minute or two, because it does seem like we've got a couple of people still on the line that enjoy this. It's actually an interesting point where it might be worthwhile to extend the session if we've got people that tune in at different times, and we can maybe even rotate the hosts out if people are interested.
The thing is,
that's one thing.
We can do this most of the day, right? So,
yes.
If we change hosts, yeah.
And if we're allowed to go fetch more coffee, there's a certain period where we can live without coffee, and then we've got problems. Actually, now that I see this, I actually have that from that company. I'll close the label so we don't see. So this is from the first DevOps Day conference that they sponsored, and they did the Nyan whale as part of the swag for it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Off topic. Darko, do you have a stream tonight?
Yes, so tonight at 6 o'clock, I will be doing hopefully the final part of my CloudFormation Let's Code series, where I build a CI/CD pipeline plus some ECS fun things in the backend. So if you enjoy a stream where where I basically code CloudFormation while looking at documentation and failing miserably. So please do join me. And I think today we will be wrapping those things up. There's also recordings to the previous two streams, and they're long streams. They're like 2 hours long. So it's a kind of a, you can sit there, watch me code, and there's music playing in the background. So if you're looking for like some relaxing environmental music to play in the backend, that's also good. And hear me rant and bang on my keyboard. So today is that stream. Hopefully we finish things today, and then afterwards we're gonna continue the Let's Go series with some other languages, or infrastructure as code things, or whatever.
So the question then is, would you say that this is the final CloudFormation? Da-da-dan-dan.
Yes. How did you know?
Yeah. So yeah, what I was going to say is just to start wrapping things up a little bit is if anybody has any questions or requests or even comments in terms of how they want us to change this hour that we spent, or hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on what we do, please send them to us. I mean, you can easily find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I know myself is very easy to find. There's no one else with my name yet, luckily. And probably not anytime soon because I only have 2 daughters and we're stopping at that. So yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Any more questions? Otherwise, I think, any other last thoughts that any of you have, Darko, Ricardo, or things you want to share with the people?
No, it's been fun. Thank you for inviting me, Cobus.
Awesome. Yeah, we hope to have you here more frequently then.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
I'm always up for doing that. And many years ago, it was '96, I think. Actually, I was traveling around the southern parts of Africa, so it's nice to reconnect, with the area.
Oh yeah, so the area where you don't want to know that it's going to be 23 today, and it's supposed to be middle of winter, and I'm sitting here with a t-shirt and shorts and the window open.
That seems fine to me. I find that temperature quite nice, actually. Anything above 13 is good.
Hey, CloudWatch
Cool.
and hybrid. I've done a video. Tomorrow I'm doing hybrid things. I'm not going to do CloudWatch per se, but I can do that. I can work on that. So tomorrow there's a webinar for the Sub-Saharan Africa region. I mean, anybody can join. But if you have registered, you should have already also gotten the invite for tomorrow. And I'm doing a hybrid SSM thing where I also mention what is it called? CloudWatch. I don't show CloudWatch per se, but I mention it. Maybe it's not the best thing, but that in mind, I am very happy to do CloudWatch in hybrid. If you are interested, or show how to do CloudWatch on, well, not on a Raspberry Pi because there's no agent for Raspbian, but I have a small server here which I can use and to demo things. So
I didn't even know you could do that, Darko. So basically, the SSM agent allows you to pipe logs back to CloudWatch, does it?
No, you install the CloudWatch agent locally through SSM. SSM does it all for you, and you can also configure the local agent with SSM. It's very much integrated, and basically it'll ship logs and I think even metrics away to CloudWatch. So it's a really great thing to do. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Actually, this view. I actually want to just pop that link up there for all of our people. I just want to make sure. Okay, no, this is yes, it is actually this one. So what you can see in this link is that this was one of a 6-part series on managing and understanding costs of running servers and services in the cloud with on-prem, disaster recovery, total cost of ownership, and then how to do patch management, all that Darko is mentioning. So if you do want to join, that is the link to it. You can still register for tomorrow's session. And then also what I want to actually throw out here is that Darko and myself actually have a 4-part infrastructure as code session coming next week, where we take a look at firstly just an overview of what the infrastructure as code in the context of AWS. No, that's not your book. You're not selling your book. And then to answer that question that says, should I be using CloudFormation, CDK, or Terraform? And we normally just say yes. We've got a 45-minute session on each of those. So we will be going into quite a lot of detail.
It's my phone. Sorry, I apologize. That's my phone causing noise. Yeah, so next week we will be doing that. Yeah, please, if you can link it there. There you go.
Yeah.
It's a webinar series coming up. Register. We'll be there to answer questions as well. So while we are talking, offline. But yeah.
Well, so just for those who want to join us for those, the format is we pre-record the video and then we are sitting there answering questions as the video plays for the webinar itself. So it's a nice way to be able to interact with people as the session goes along, because there are always some questions. And with live webinars, you have the challenge of, do I answer the one question and block 30 or 40 people, or do I continue with the session and that person doesn't get an answer? So this is the balance we found that actually works well.
Yeah, very cool. Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you everybody for joining. It was super fun. Thank you, Cobus. Thank you, Ricardo.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Thanks for joining.
Next week, I guess, maybe. And see you everybody on my stream later on today if you want to join.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining. Cheers. See you next week.